Sophia was a deeply romantic idealist who had rushed into marriage abroad, believing in love more than logic. She and Andres met in late 2019. She was traveling through South America on a career break, chasing something she couldn't yet name. Bogotá was supposed to be a weekend stop. Then came the salsa bar, the music, and the man who made her laugh until she forgot her own name. They danced until their legs ached. They kissed beneath cafe lights. They stayed up until sunrise, whispering about art, grief, and who they'd be. Then came lockdown. Borders froze, flights were canceled. A weekend became months. They quarantined together in a tiny apartment. The city was silent. The world suspended, but the stillness brought them closer. Without distractions, they learned each other's rhythms. The quiet mornings, the way Andres hummed old songs when he worked. What could have broken them, softened them instead? In May 2020, they got married on Zoom. Her family watched from Colorado, his from Medellin. She wore a secondhand lace dress. He wore a pressed shirt. The Wi-Fi crackled as they said the vows. It looked like a modern fairy tale, a love story in COVID. When restrictions lifted that summer, Sophia flew back to Colorado to pack her things, then return to Bogotá. Married, hopeful, but secretly afraid. She had traded sunlit brunches and weekend hikes for a strange chill that seeped through the walls of the city locals nicknamed the Freezer of Colombia. No job, no friends, no family nearby. Andres worked long hours, and his daughter Elena came to stay every weekend, just 3 years old, with bouncing curls and shy smiles. Sophia wanted to be kind, but when she saw Andres kneel to tie Elena's shoes, or kiss her on the forehead that used to be reserved only for Sophia, something inside her broke open. She felt replaced. She didn't hate the child. She hated how easily the tenderness she once had all to herself now belonged to someone else. She didn't talk to Andres about it. Instead, she started doing things that control. She decluttered the apartment like a woman possessed, tossed out Andres's old shirts and beat-up books, bought new bins, new labels, new linens. "This is our fresh start," she said. But Andres didn't feel fresh. Sophia didn't notice. She was busy battling the silence in her head. She spent hours watching Andres's location on her phone, wondering where he was, why he didn't seem to see her anymore. One night, she finally said it. "I don't want to make decisions with someone else in mind anymore. I feel trapped. I need freedom." Andres just stared at her, then said, "That sounds like you don't want to be in a relationship." Sophia hesitated, then nodded. "Maybe I don't." She expected tears, maybe a fight, or a slow talk. Instead, he just stood up. "You have 2 days. Either you leave or I will." And then he left, just like that. Sophia sat alone for hours after the door slammed. She packed a bag, then unpacked it. She stayed in that apartment for a week. No lights, no phone, no talk to a single person. She cried until her chest hurt. She asked herself in the mirror, "Is this who I am? Why do I never feel like enough?" But she realized she still didn't want to leave. She wanted peace. She wanted to feel loved. Andres returned, a suitcase in his hand. He didn't unpack. They sat across from each other at the kitchen table. Like strangers. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "But I want to try." He nodded, but it was distant, like the words didn't reach him. In weeks, they shared space, but not much more. Sophia tried to reconnect, but everything felt off. They fought constantly, even in public. There was no intimacy left, only silence, tension, and anger. One night, Andres went out with friends. He didn't tell her much, just that he was meeting some people from high school. Sophia stayed home, pretending she didn't care. But later that night, she saw a photo on social media, dim lights, soft music, Andres smiling with a woman she'd never heard of. She lost control, a furious fire ignite inside. So when he stepped through the door, she walked up to him and kicked him in the shin. It was impulsive, clumsy, but it was the only language she had left in that moment. The only way to say, "I'm hurt, and I don't know how to show it." Then, a week later, came an invitation. Her best friend was getting married in Hawaii. Sophia booked the ticket. She needed to go, not for fun, but for survival. "I'm going," she told Andres. "You can come if you want, but I won't be with you there. I need space." He didn't say, and then he didn't come. In Hawaii, she danced barefoot in the sand. Her friends wrapped her in hugs and told her she was strong, but all she felt was hollow. When she returned, the silence between them was colder than Bogota air. Then once, he found her laptop open. A browser tab, she had forgotten to close it. How to get divorced in Colorado. When she returned that night, Andres didn't say a word. He didn't confront. He took off his ring. When she saw the pale line on his finger, something inside her cracked. This could have been the end, as many marriages do, with the still painful silence of two people who've stopped believing in repair. But Sophia was still there. Maybe it was the memory of her grandparents who had a 55 years as marriage. Maybe it was that she had simply run out of places to run. Sophia decided to stay. Not for Andres. She stayed for herself, to understand why love made her feel small. For the first time, she stopped asking how to fix someone else. She asked, "What do I need to feel safe inside?" And that question, quiet and honest, was the beginning of everything. The next morning, Sophia got out of bed without dreading the day. Nothing in the world had changed, except her. She made a cup of coffee. Bitter, black. She didn't add sugar. She drank it just the way it was, hot and real. Then, she opened her voice memo app, whispered a sentence only she would hear. "Breathe. This is the version of you that stays." It wasn't some big comeback. It was the beginning of something. She began recording a voice note every day, sometimes crying, sometimes angry. Other times, she just read old poems aloud, just to hear her own voice again. Andres didn't say much. He gave her space, no questions. And for once, Sophia didn't fill the silence with demands or explanations. She didn't ask where he'd been, didn't demand anything from him. Instead, she started walking. Each afternoon, she wandered the cracked sidewalks of Bogota, through side streets and alleys, past fruit vendors, stray dogs, and the smell of arepas in the air. Her body remembered something as she walked. Her breath, her rhythm, her skin. One day, she passed a torn flyer taped to a lamppost, "Therapy Through Music, for artists, expats, and the soul lost." She almost walked past it, but something in her made her stop. She took a photo. 3 days later, she sat in a mismatched armchair in a room filled with string instruments and incense. A woman named Mariela, soft-spoken, asked simply, "Why are you here?" Sophia replied, "I don't know. I just want to feel something." Mariela smiled gently. "Good. That means it's time to start singing again." Sophia didn't sing that day. She cried, the kind of crying that comes from the body, not the eyes. Mariela didn't interrupt. She sat at the piano and played slow, minor chords until the tears softened. That became their ritual every Tuesday. Sometimes Sophia sang. Sometimes she didn't. Once, she beat a drum so loud it startled her into laughter. That made her felt free. Music gave her access to emotions she didn't know how to name. And slowly, she saw the pattern of her life. When things got hard, she ran. From jobs, from the city, from love. She had always been brilliant at beginnings, enchanted by newness, but terrified of staying. One day, after a long session, she asked, "Why do I always run?" Mariella said softly, "Maybe you never saw love that stayed, so you never learned how to trust it." Sophia nodded. Her grandparents had stayed, but her parents hadn't. Her childhood home had been full of slammed doors and long silences. Maybe love had always felt temporary. She started journaling, not about the marriage, about herself. What was she afraid of? What did she truly want? First, the pages filled with frustration, rage, memories of all the ways Andres had disappointed her. But after a few days, something unexpected showed up. She remembered how he used to make her coffee without asking, how he'd tuck her cold feet under his legs during movies, the softness in his voice when he read bedtime stories to Elena. Maybe it had been love. That thought shook her. Sophia started listening to podcasts at night. A woman's voice, calm, spoke about how women often abandon themselves in the name of being strong. She said, "Sometimes what looks like depression is just exhaustion from pretending you're fine." Sophia sat up in bed and whispered into the dark, "Yes." Sophia stopped trying to fix Andres, stopped over-explaining. Instead, she listened to herself. And in that quiet, she began to see what she hadn't been ready to face before. She was invited to perform at a sensual poetry night, an event she'd once have loved. She hadn't realized the tone of the event until she was already on stage. By then, it was too late. Someone handed her a whip as a joke. She laughed, played along. Someone had filmed it, and then it ended up on Instagram. She never told Andres. He found out and said nothing for 3 days, and then said quietly, "That you didn't think I deserved to know?" Sophia had snapped back, "I didn't do anything wrong." But then she suddenly felt guilty. The real betrayal wasn't the event. It was the wall she'd built around herself and expected him to climb. That night, she wrote her first real apology. It was disrespectful. "I didn't know how to protect our trust. I'm sorry." She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just handed him the note. Andres read it, looked up and said, "Thank you." The apology marked a turning point, but it wasn't magic. Andres didn't say much. "Let's start over." He simply added, something sacred had happened. In letting go of her defenses, Sophia had made space for a new version of herself to emerge. She began to notice her voice. "You never care about me. You always make me feel small." Now, each time those thoughts rose, she paused, just enough to ask, "Is this true? Or is this fear speaking again?" It wasn't easy. Andrei still withdrew when he was hurt. He still moved through the house with a kind of cautious quiet, like he was waiting for the next storm. But Sophia didn't chase him anymore. She let the silence breathe. A few days later, Andres came home with a small gift, a candle. Sophia blinked. "You bought me a candle?" He smirked, soft. "You said you missed the smell of vanilla and firelight." She remembered months ago. She'd lit a candle during a rainstorm. It had cracked the ceiling, and Andres had banned candles in the apartment ever since. But now, here he was, offering her the forbidden flame. She lit the candle that night and let it flicker beside them as they ate dinner. That night, she recorded another voice memo. "Joy is coming back, quietly, like a cat sneaking through the dark." She started noticing things again. The color of the sky at sunset. The way the city smelled like bread and smoke after rain. One afternoon, Elena ran over to Sophia with a drawing. "It's us," she said. "You, me, and Daddy." In the picture, Sophia was smiling. Her stick-figure arms reached around the other two. Her hair was wild, the way Elena always teased her about. But what caught Sophia most was this. She had been drawn in the center. Not an outsider, not a stranger, part of the family. That night, Sophia sat on the floor of her bedroom and whispered, "I want to stay." Sophia had spent years responding to vulnerability with control, to fear with force. Even now, her first instinct was often to correct, to suggest, to manage. One evening, she caught herself halfway through saying, "You should really..." Before stopping, she laughed. "I almost bossed you again." Andres raised an eyebrow. "Almost?" "Okay, I did," she grinned. "Sorry, still unlearning." He smiled. "I am too." Sophia kept going to therapy. The sessions became more than healing, kind of softness she wanted to bring home, kind of patience she was only now learning to give herself. One day, Mariela asked her, "What's the hardest thing for you right now?" Sophia didn't hesitate. "Trusting that I deserve this." Mariela nodded. "And yet, you're still here." That sentence stuck with her. She was still here, still trying, still letting love land without swatting it away with sarcasm or fear. She began singing again, for herself. Andres came home. He'd find her humming in the kitchen, apron on, hair messy, lost in some old jazz standard, and he'd stop. Just watch, like she was something new. One night, after Elena had fallen asleep, he leaned against the doorway and said, "You seem different." Sophia turned. "I am?" He took a step closer. "In a good way." She smiled. "I think so." He touched her cheek, gentle, searching, and for the first time in months, she didn't flinch. She leaned in. That simple moment, in the kitchen, candle flickering on the windowsill, she finally understood what it meant to stay. To be present in the hard moments without needing to escape. To be worthy because she had finally decided to believe it. There were no fireworks the day Sophia came back to herself. Just soft light through half-closed curtains. A quiet apartment. A body that had finally rested. She woke up without dread in her chest. She didn't check her phone. She just breathed. Andres had taken Elena out for breakfast, a father-daughter ritual that used to stir jealousy in Sophia's chest, but not today. Now it gave her space to start over. She walked into the kitchen. Her hair was messy, wearing the same sweatshirt as yesterday, but she didn't care. She put on soft jazz. Cracked 2 eggs into a pan. Let the music carry her. When Andres came home, Sophia was humming, wiping the counter, completely lost in her own rhythm. Andres paused in the doorway. He didn't recognize the woman in front of him. Her presence was different. There was no tension in her shoulders, no defense in her eyes. "Hey," she said. He blinked. "Hey." That was it. Just a soft, quiet beginning. Sometimes choosing to stay doesn't come with big speeches. It comes with breathing, and cooking eggs, and letting yourself hum again. Sophia wanted to love without control, to feel without apologizing, to receive without a test. She wanted to connect, but real change is never a straight line. One night while folding laundry, Andres casually suggested moving the hamper to the hallway. His tone was neutral, but something in her chest tightened. She almost snapped. But she paused. She took a breath and said, "That felt like a jab. I don't know if you meant it that way." Andres looked up surprised. "No," he said. "I just trip over it sometimes." It was the first time Sophia realized how many fights had come from her assumptions, from choosing to believe the worst. Another day, Andres asked if she still want that music night, the one with the candles and poems. Sophia paused. "I thought about it," she said. "But I didn't want to go without telling you." Andres nodded. "Thank you for saying that." There was a silence after that, but this time it wasn't awkward. It was peaceful. Sophia still saw Mariela every week, They didn't always talk about Andres. Sometimes they talked about her childhood, about how love had always felt like something to earn, not something to receive. Mariella once said, "If you believe you're not worthy of love, no amount of it will ever feel safe." That line echoed in Sophia's mind for days. It explained so much. Why she pushed Andres away when he got close. Why she had envied Elena's easy joy. One afternoon, Sophia came home, humming a tune she had made up while walking. She sang it softly as Andres washed dishes. He didn't interrupt, just listened. When she finished, he dried his hands and walked over. "That was beautiful," he said. He touched her waist, hesitant, gentle. She let him. Their kiss wasn't fiery. It was gentle, reverent. Later, curled in bed, Sophia whispered, "Do you still want this?" Andres pulled her closer. "I never stopped." They fell asleep tangled together, breathing in rhythm. No words, just trust. The next morning, Elena came in wearing strawberry socks. She climbed into bed with them, tucked herself between their arms, and pulled the blanket over all three. Sophia looked at Andres. He looked at her, and in that quiet, under the weight of a child's warmth, they became a family again. They cooked together more, took evening walks, shared playlists. Sophia let Andres take the lead sometimes, not because she didn't have opinions, but because trust is a better foundation than control. She also started letting herself receive compliments, help, affection. Andres, in turn, began to soften. He started humming again while cooking, started sending her songs from the playlists he made for work. He took her hand in public, something he hadn't done in years. There were still hard days. They still argued. But Sophia no longer feared those moments. She didn't need to win. She needed to be present. That changed everything. The door creaked open. Andres stepped in. "You ready?" he asked. Sophia smiled. "Yeah, let's go." As they walked out together, Sophia realized something she had never truly understood before. The freedom she had been chasing all her life was never somewhere else. It had always been here. The next weekend, Elena drew a picture of the three of them again. This time, Sophia was holding a guitar. "You're singing," Elena said, "and we're dancing." Sophia's throat tightened. Sometimes healing comes in crayons and glitter. She got up, walked to her desk, and wrote, "You are more than enough. Never forget it," on a note card. She slipped it into Elena's backpack. The next day, Elena found it. Said nothing at first, but after school, she came to Sophia and handed the card back, now covered in glitter hearts. "I made it better," she said. Sophia smiled, kissed her head. "You did." Sophia began working on music more seriously. Andres didn't hover, he just supported. Sometimes he'd peek in and ask, "Need anything?" And Sophia, finally able to receive, say, "Actually, yeah." She let him bring her tea. Let him listen to the demos. Let him see her messy, creative self, and sometimes that's all healing needs. She had come home, to herself, to her family, to a life she no longer wanted to leave.